Welcome dart players one and all. Today we're going to have a quick discussion about dart points themselves, various lengths that are available and the pros and cons between using a long point over a short point. Also the different types of grips that you can find on dart points these days. Are they necessary? That's the biggest question of all, and what are the implications of using an aggressive point compared to a smooth point? So we'll start today by looking at the long black point. Now this is very common. You'll see a bit of ring grip at the start here. Now if you're getting grip at the top of the point, closest to the shaft, to the barrel of the dart, you won't have to worry about any damage to your dartboard, which is positive, but it does give you more stability if you are a player who favours gripping the point itself. That being said, if you're not actually placing any of your fingers on the point, it is wasted. In terms of this point, you can see right here, which is a target storm point, which has been aggressively grooved. Now this does protrude into the dartboard for most players, so it comes a little bit further down than the first grip you saw, and it will damage your dartboard significantly, but it will help your darts land flatter, more consistently, and will also help them stay in the board a lot better as well. I have personally always used a very short point, preferably black. However, silver will do with a bit of modification. Why would I use a short point now? I suppose the big theory out there at the moment is if you use a long point, you are going to have more space area in the treble, which is true, as we can demonstrate. I mean, if the point comes into the board, say this far, you've got nearly half an inch gap between the barrel and the board, so you do have more space, but you do lose stability. Whereas with a shorter point, my barrel is going to be going right up to the dartboard, which does make the target smaller. However, it does also mean that my darts are more stable in the board. It also means that if I'm above the treble, I can use this part of the barrel that's touching the board to glance off it, so I can actually use it to make the treble bigger in that regard. Very typical player for that was Wayne Mardle. He always used a very short point. If you watch his darts, especially going back to about 2008, or watch the semi-final when he plays Full Taylor, his darts go right into the board, and he actually uses the barrel to make the target bigger. Now somebody like, let's say, Gary Anderson would use this style of point more typically, in which the point only goes into the board up to here. The grip he's using purely just for his finger, just to help him get a little bit more stability on the grip. But this part of the barrel is further away from the dartboard, which does mean he's got more room in the treble to actually sight when throwing at it. Can help you hit more 180s with a longer point, but you do sacrifice stability. I would rather go for a shorter point, go and keep the darts in there nice and stable and looking good. I find I hit a lot more time 40s. I'll sacrifice a couple of 180s maybe, but for consistency, I prefer a shorter point. That being said, if you go too short, what you will find is that the barrels can actually start hitting the wire, especially on more modern dartboards. And you hear a big clank and it can start chipping away at the darts, which isn't good. So you do have to find the balance with that. Going to the point back in the middle, now this does have another advantage to it, as well as a disadvantage, which is this little cone. This replaces a Trident 180, so it makes the barrel more flush with the point itself, and this is to help save your flights and try and spare a couple of deflections. It'll just, so the theory is that if the point brushes up against the flight, it will hit this and it will ricochet off rather than hitting the flat part of the barrel, damaging the flight or bouncing out, subtracting the dart. There is a disadvantage to this type of point though, and that is clearly that the point itself is quite a bit thicker than a standard. The problem with that is you are going to find it more aggressive. So even if you don't have the grip on the point itself, because the point is thicker, you're going to be creating a bigger hole in the dartboard itself on penetration. So for example, I've got the same model point here with no grip, in place. You can see how thick that point is compared to that. That being said, if you take a standard version of this point, a smooth version, and rough it up, you are going to have a lot of consistency, a little bit less deflections because of this. Your flights will last a bit longer, and you will get a lot of grip. This is still a relatively short point. This is a 26mm version. One thing I will say about buying different length of points is that if you're buying a storm point type in which it has this cone and it says 26mm, that's generally equal to a 32mm version of a straight point, like so. Now, with using shorter points, I do find it quite difficult to buy the type of length that I like, so I tend to modify points. So in this case, you can see I've bought a 36mm point. I've actually cut it down and placed it a version in this dart by here, so I've got the point I want in it, but much shorter. When it comes to testing levels of different lengths of points, I do recommend buying a pack of these. So this is a 66mm point. It's extremely long. As you can see, I've placed one in this dart and coloured it green. So yeah. However, they are extremely cheap and easily breakable. So you can have a look at breaking the point in various parts, just trying to find what length suits you the best. It's great for trial and error because the length of point is very individual and it will depend a lot upon how your darts land. If your darts are landing quite softly in the board, you might be better with a slightly shorter point because you're getting that stability. If your points are hitting the board quite firmly and you want a bigger gap between the barrel and the board, long points. It's as simple as that. But I do recommend getting a pack online of these very cheap, very long points. I believe these are 66mm advertised as, although when they came they were more like 55. But you can break them down whatever length you want. Trial and error is key. When it comes to different grips, again, this is a diamond type of grip. Now you'll see with the more target type of grips, this is more of a sandblast. So rather than try and get this in focus, that's quite tricky. There, I think that's it. So rather than cutting grooves into it deeply, they cut a very fine groove on the point, and it's sandblasted. This will become less. This will do less damage to your dartboard than something that's so thickly gripped as this, but you'll find a lot of grip on these points. A real amount of grip. You won't have to sand them down like I have with this one. You won't have to create your own little notches, which is what I tend to do. I'll get a very thick stone and I'll just cut these little grooves into it. Very much like what Michael Van Gerwen does with his darts. If you watch his points, they almost look like they've just been purely sandblasted. They haven't. It's just really roughed up. So these can be a good alternative. This style of point, various brands do it as well, in which the print is more sandblasted onto the point rather than etched in. But there you go, guys. As I say, it's purely trial and error. Those are the pros and the cons. Shorter, more stability. Longer, less stability. Might find it land in some awkward ways here and there at first, but you do see more of the treble. That being said, another thing to take into consideration is coatings. So as you can see here, you've got a gold coat, a black coat, a silver coat. You can also get a blue titanium coat, as well as some rainbow coating. They will all have different thicknesses. A black coat is generally the most grippy. So if you have a brand new black point that's very sharp, generally you won't have to do anything to the point. It will stay in the board really well at first. As it goes blunt, you'll have to sharpen it, but the black coating will grip in the board very well by itself. If you're going for a more silver, a clear coat, when they're brand new, as you can see, it's very shiny and well polished. That will not grip into the dartboard very well at all. You're going to find the point goes in and it's going to want to come back out. But as I've done with this one, rough them up. It'll do the job. Trial and error, though, is key. But that is it for today, guys. Those are the pros and the cons of using different dart points. Hope this helps. That's straight to the point. Thank you.